teenagers series of webinars. Hope you're all safe and sound in your homes while we continue to bring the world's leading experts to you. Today we have with us Miss Kimberly. Kimberly, if you just introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is Kimberly D. Worthy. I am a writer and I'm also a television personality.
Hey Kimberly, so good to have you on the show with us. We've been waiting for this for some time now.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Same here, Kimberly. So I'll just hop on to the first question that I have for you.
Okay.
How do you think literature helps children early on in their life, and how does it complement the other subjects that children study?
Okay, great question. Well, not only am I a writer, I'm also an ESL teacher. So what that stands for is English Second Language. And literature definitely helps bridge the gap with all subjects. Whether we're talking about math or science, it all starts with communication. So literature helps you with your written word as well as your oral word to be able to even solve the simplest or the hardest of math problems.
So in the current scenario where children are attending classes virtually, do you think it reduces the effectiveness of learning?
Teaching virtually?
Yeah.
I definitely think teachers, we have a unique opportunity to take advantage of teaching virtually because you get to personalize your lesson for your students. I have a unique advantage because I normally teach one-on-one as I'm talking with you. So I get to know my student personally, what they like, what they do not like. Are they audio learners? Are they visual learners? So once you really like learn who you're teaching, you can bring the class to them and make it very exciting versus a classroom where there could be 20 or 30 students and you do not have the opportunity to really focus in and really help students to actually progress in their learning.
So, well, I mean, for normal schools right now, since children can't go and attend classes, and that is the number of students that you have in class. Do you think that is effective as of now? I mean, would that work in the long term?
I believe it will work in the long term. I do think now it's great for supplementary since they cannot make it in the classroom. But like earlier I was saying, if you bring the things to that student that can help them learn, it will definitely help them. So with me teaching ESL, we do something that's called TPR, and that's total physical response. So if I'm teaching you how to drink something, I'm saying drink or fly, it's easy for me because I speak with my hands anyway. So I think that this is just a new curve that people just have to get used to. And it's really nothing new per se. It's new to do it because we cannot have the classroom setting anymore. But with proper education and proper practice, I think teachers would be able to make it more exciting for students and help them along the way.
Even with a class of 20, 30, you think it'll be effective in the long run? I mean, once you get to know the students.
In the long run, will it be effective?
In the same model online, when you're not able to, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just think when you're not able to look at the students or figure out how they're responding to you when it's 20 students in front of you, you think, I mean, in the long run it will still be effective?
Well, if it's 20 students and I cannot like physically see the student, I believe it will be effective, but it's more effective if I'm able to actually look at the student. Now with audio only learning, I think with older students, it's more effective. With younger students, they definitely need a stimuli to keep them engaged. So that's where teamwork with the parent comes in play. Now my students are between the ages of 3 and 17. So with my younger students, I definitely need to see them. Older students, it's a little better. So it really just depends on the age group of the student that you're actually teaching.
Okay. So what are the other changing trends in the education system as of now that you think have come up recently?
Well, changing trends, well, definitely social media, because I've seen a lot of people actually conducting classes on social media, and that's definitely a change. Most of my students, they live in China. And from my students, I've learned that they use their public access channel to watch a educational television show. And that's how they're doing teaching. Because in China, they've been quarantined for about 4 months now. So they kind of have it more down pat than what we have here in the US. And I find that very interesting because I don't believe that we're using our public access channels as a vehicle for teaching students.
I don't think so. So any other trends that you see upcoming in the, current future?
In the future, I honestly think that this will become the new normal. Even though me thinking in the future of teaching 20 students without being able to see them, I honestly think eventually this will become the new normal. And not just because of the quarantine. When you think about it, this is technology that we can use to save money in other aspects. Instead of the brick and mortar buildings, we can kind of move to education in a more virtual space. So I think this will become, if not the new normal for everyone, it would definitely be a substitute, especially for those snow days where I live. If it snows just a little, the whole city is shutting down. We do not have snow here. So when the city shuts down, children miss school. We didn't have this virtual learning before then, but now I think when that happens in the future, school will go on as if they're in the classroom.
And during these times, when children are stuck at home, there's a sudden feeling of isolation that you don't have your friends around anymore. Do you think that would, give a negative effect on children? I mean, have a negative effect?
It definitely can have a negative effect. I mean, social isolation, it can have negative effects on grown-ups as well. So for me, I find it very important to not only be my students' teacher, but their friends as well. So by that, I let them express themselves. Some days it can just be total academics. The next day that student's just not feeling it. So we're going to talk about your feelings. We're going to bring in that self-expression because nothing is healthy about keeping it inside. And that's one of the things I do in my class. I'm known for poetry. So we're going to write that problem out. We're going to draw concrete poems, whatever we have to do to make you feel better and to get your mind off of it. So I like to bring in games. I can tell you about one of the games that I do for my students.
Please do.
So I give them like 20 seconds and I say, look around, find everything that you can see. I pick a random color like red. Okay, make a mental note, everything red, everything red. After 20 seconds, they're like, teacher, I know I got a lot of red things in my mind. So I say, okay, tell me everything that you saw that was blue. And they're like, blue? You said red. But I want them to understand the correlation. What you focus on is what you bring to life. So just like with the quarantine, just like with social isolation, if we keep focusing on, oh, I'm at home, I don't have any friends, I don't know what to do, it's going to grow, it's going to exacerbate the problem. But if we keep our mind open where other things can come inside, just like I said, show me something blue. It can be a blue toy right by that student, but they did not see that blue toy because they're focused on red. So for students, a lot of times, social isolation is the red. When you open your mind up and you see the different colors and the different things, you might be at home, but this is the time to get close to your family. This is the time to continue to learn English, maybe learn some other language, learn Spanish. So it's different things that you can do. It's just about the way that you focus and look at things. And that has a way of bringing my kids out of their depression. Some of them brings them out and they start to realize, you're right, Teacher Kim. I didn't focus on that blue doll there the same way I didn't focus on, I have a little brother, I have a new little baby sister that I can play with and teach them English like I'm learning today.
Wow, that's a good technique to learn even for elders, not just children.
Oh.
Yes. When you said blue, I started looking around for things that were blue. So yeah, yes. That's a really great technique.
Thank you.
What other things do children like to do? What do you do make them do to take their mind off things?
Well, once I understand what type of learner my child is, if they're small, we definitely make things because most small children are kinesthetic learners. They have to feel it to understand it. So if I'm teaching you about airplanes, we're going to grab some construction paper and we're going to put that airplane together. For my older students, some of them could be kinesthetic learners as well, but an airplane is not going to get their attention. They're more interreliar. So if I'm teaching them about cell phones, we're going to pull out our cell phones. I'm going to show them their apps. Or my apps, they're going to show me their apps. And so we're communicating, we're having fun, but we're learning at the same time. And that's a great thing. Most students don't realize they're actually learning, because if I wait to the next class and I ask them something from this class, they remember it because they can put an object to the word. And I think that's very important as well.
Absolutely. There really a lot of great literature is written around, pandemics like the plague or the cholera outbreak. Do you think there's another one of, such great works in the making?
Well, my students will have great works, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I have them keeping journals. I have them to write down how they're feeling every day. What are they smelling? What do they taste? What are they hearing? Because this is going to be the history of them. Generations from now, when they're grandparents and they have grandchildren, they can say, I can show you my journal from 2020. This is what was going on. Because I actually have like journals from my grandma on what was going on in her time. So this is becoming family heirlooms. You are a part of history. And when they understand that, they're like, wow. And I show them, you see this history book that we're reading? One day this will be in that history book. And when your grandkids are reading this book, you can show them what you're going through now. They can take that to their teacher and they can have a show and tell. So all of my students will have their own piece of history at the end of this.
Wow, that's a great thought. Absolutely.
Yes.
So do you think poetry should be incorporated, in everyday syllabi as well? I mean, whether children are learning English or not? Do you think poetry makes you express yourself better?
It definitely does. And I can talk about myself personally. So when I was in middle school, I was bullied, and bullying took away my voice. I became very withdrawn. I didn't want to interact with anyone. I had this very special teacher in 7th grade, and she taught me about poetry. And not only just poetry, she taught me how to construct different poems, whether I was doing alliteration, onomatopoeias. So I didn't have time to be depressed anymore. I wanted to format my words to meet the criteria for those specific poems. And that got me to writing poetry books. So, and I like to say that poetry is not just a written word, it's self-expression. So your poetry might be music, it might be dancing, it's all the art. So it's definitely important because we have to have an outlet. No one is one-dimensional. And if you are one-dimensional, that's unhealthy as well. So you need to have different layers. So poetry should be included in every curriculum, in my opinion.
That's how you got interested in poetry.
That's exactly how I got interested in poetry. And it helped me with speaking. It helped me with working in television because now I'm not afraid to express myself. I'm not afraid to speak in front of crowds. It just brought me out of my shell.
Wow. Just tell us a little bit about your television work as well.
Yes. Well, I'm mostly known as the girl that could not cook on Food Network's Worst Bakers in America. And then I came back as a fan favorite for Worst Cooks in America. So little did I know, baking and cooking are two different sciences that you need to learn. It's not even the same skill set. So yes, it's crazy. But now I am a mediocre baker, a mediocre cook. I'm definitely continuing to try to become an expert in those areas. I also have experience with TMZ, so I like to talk, as you can see. And with TMZ, I just commented on celebrity news and just brought my personal opinion on what was going on in popular culture.
Great. So how did you become interested in, children and teaching them English and taking the ESL classes?
Well, I became interested in children and teaching them English when I decided to revamp the poetry book I mentioned earlier from middle school. I revamped that book and I created Poetry Is Not Just Rhyming. That was my first book. So that book went over different aspects of poetry, from alliteration all the way to onomatopoeias. And it also was a workbook for kids to learn how to write poetry and color in their poems. So that book led me to developing a children's television show called Poetry and Light. Now, Poetry in Life is a show where kids come into a rec room setting and they're talking about their issues of the day, whether it's an issue at home. Because a lot of kids have issues at home that they bring to school. And then for teachers that are not really in tune with their students, they may mistakenly say it's a behavior problem, but all the times it's not a behavior problem. That child is acting out because they don't have an outlet at home. So Poetry in Life deals with issues of at home, sometimes abuse, sometimes neglect, shyness, bullying, and it shows you how to use poetry to combat those issues, which led me to the second volume of Poetry is Not Just Rhyming, volume 2, that really goes and dealt with what we cover on the show Poetry in Life. So all of that really, it speaks to my heart because I know how it is to be bullied, but it's very different now because when I was bullied, it wasn't social media. You were bullied in math class and it was it. By the time you went to lunch, no one remembered, it's a whole nother thing. But now you're bullied in math class. By the time you get to lunch, 5 or 6 other school systems know about it because we have Twitter, we have all these other things that, communication get out so much faster. So my heart goes out to those students. And this is why I dedicate my life to showing them creative ways to deal with that.
Well, I think, the work that you're doing for students especially is really commendable. I mean, helping them with such issues.
Yes.
Especially small children who go through it, it's really amazing.
Thank you.
Kimberly, I have to thank you for, giving us your time, especially all the way from US. I mean, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here and hearing your thoughts about things.